Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named FluffBuffer in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled AITAH for refusing to take care of my niece after she called me a slur. 29M and my wife 30F have 2 kids, 5M and 3M. My wife works a full-time office job while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. My sister 26F, let's call her Barb, and her husband 30M, let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter 5F, let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we decided that I would drop off and pick up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't mind this arrangement. In fact, I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well and always thought of myself as her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well behaved. Most days, I bring her and my kids back to our house where I make them snacks or dinner, and in the afternoon or evening, my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago, the 5-year-olds were watching Bluey on TV while I was preparing snacks with my 3-year-old when I suddenly heard yelling. I rushed over to see what was happening and my son was yelling at Tracy that my dad's not a girl, while my niece yelled back, he's a F word, that's like a girl. I was kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV and sat her down to explain that this is a very bad word and we shouldn't be calling people that. Regardless, I'm not a girl. Because this is a bad word, she should apologize to me since we don't act mean to each other in this family. I told her that if I hear this again, I'm going to talk to her parents and she will get in trouble. She said she wouldn't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's still a very bad word and she should not use it around me or in my presence. She should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did because she's a really good kid. We talked some more and I probed her about other things her parents said. From what I gathered, Nick, my brother-in-law, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day doing childcare, that cooking is a woman's duty, as is cleaning and really most of the things I do around my house. He implied that I'm a girl because I do housework and because my wife earns more money than I do. I explained to her as best as I could that men and women can work from an office or from home, that my wife or a Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make them men, and vice versa. However, I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. I didn't immediately bring this up with my sister because I figured it would be a difficult conversation. I didn't want to have it in front of the kids and I wanted to talk it out with my wife first as well. That evening I discussed it with my wife, who seemed really upset too. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. I called my sister and explained what happened. She said that it's just a word and that I'm blowing it out of proportion. Obviously, Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me. He is talking negatively about me behind my back to both my niece and to her, and she seems very chill about this rather than standing up for me. She said that was just how Nick was and that I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to leave me alone. If that's how she felt, she could pick up her own child from daycare and then hung up. I know it was really short notice and rude, but I felt disrespected by people I had done so much for over the years, who were my family. My wife said she understood and that I shouldn't back down until I at least received a proper apology. The next 2 days were a weekend and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of any messages or calls made me think she didn't take my words seriously, which made me even angrier. The calls finally came when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare and I didn't go. I dropped off my own kids and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty, but I had been stewing for 2 days and letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed appropriate and felt really good. Around noon when she called again, I picked up. I was going to smugly tell her that I was ready for my apology and that we could put this behind us, but instead she went off on me about how irresponsible I was and how she was late for work because of me. To this I simply said, I told you I wasn't going to pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements. She kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She continued calling and sending texts about picking Tracy up from daycare, to which I replied that I would not be doing so, then stopped responding. When I came to pick up my kids, Tracy expected me to take her as well, which was very hard on both of us. I know it's not her fault, she's 5, and now she suddenly doesn't get to come over to our place to play and have snacks. But at the same time, I didn't want to just let this go. I felt like I deserved an apology, so I explained that her mom and I were fighting, but that I'd pick her up again once we worked it out. She obviously didn't take it well, but I apologized, took my kids, and left. A bit later, I received a call from my mom. Barb had roped her into picking up Tracy. However, my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead she pulled a "you know how Nick is." To this, I replied that the more I realize how Nick is, the less I like it. If he thinks all this stuff in general, and about me specifically, I sure as hell am not going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion. I told her that I wasn't the one doing it. All I asked for was a simple apology. Everyone else seemed to prefer all of this drama over just giving it to me. She suggested that I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me. To that, I said I was done and told her to have fun with Tracy. That evening, I got a call from Nick himself. I was hesitant to answer, but I chose to do so on the off chance that I might actually receive that apology. Nope. Apparently, my behavior is causing Barb great distress, and since we're family, how could I do this to my own sister? I told him that if we're family, how can he talk negatively about me to his child, whom I take care of daily? He said he was only joking and that it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was a F-word who couldn't take a joke and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to fuck off, that I was done with him, and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom, which I didn't answer. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for my being petty. I replied that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for her parents being ungrateful pieces of shit. She then yelled at me about how she was going to lose her job and how I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done, and unless her next message was an apology, I would block her number. It wasn't, so now I've blocked her. For the past few days, my mom has been picking up Tracy, and it's been really rough seeing her at daycare and explaining that grandma is going to pick her up. She hates it and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place. It's breaking my heart. But at the same time, I never got a single apology from anyone except the 5-year-old. And I feel like letting this go would just tell my family that it's okay to ignore my boundaries. However, I do love my niece and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid and none of this is her fault. So AITAH. And what do I do? The post has barely been up for 4 hours, and I am already so grateful for all your support and advice. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I'd considered, but now I think it might actually have merit, which makes me very worried for her. At the same time, I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that that's just how Nick is, or stop overreacting isn't going to fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option, so I hope to get a chance to talk to her about it, ideally because she sees my point of view, but I'll settle for her being desperate. I will also make sure to stress to Tracy that I love her and none of this is her fault. Thank you all. User important ad said NTA, Nick is always the AH, so people are used to putting up with him. You standing up to him and holding him responsible for his actions is breaking the status quo. They would rather tell you to help stabilize the boat than tell Nick to stop rocking it because it's easier to bully a nice person than it is to change a bad person. User accurate prompt said NTA. Nick was so disrespectful about you and how you choose to live your life, despite the fact that you've done nothing but be helpful and caring toward their daughter. He's outed himself as a homophobe and misogynist and a genuinely nasty person that you shouldn't bring anywhere near your family. It's very telling how your family sees you merely as free childcare and nothing else. A complete lack of respect. The fact that the child has remembered these comments suggests that it's not the first time he said such things, and he's clearly been constantly criticizing you without your sister shutting it down. Your mother, the enabler, and your sister are horrible people for downplaying the impact of those words while expecting you to continue caring for Tracy as if nothing happened. Until you receive a sincere and heartfelt apology from all of them, I would completely refuse to provide childcare for them. If you do get one, it's entirely up to you whether you decide to help them out again, potentially with some monetary compensation. Even then, I'd completely understand if you never wanted to help them out again. It's a shame that the impressionable child will have to suffer as a result of her parents' disrespect, but ultimately, reinstating childcare would let them win and excuse their behavior without consequences. You're not a doormat. Don't allow them to walk all over you. A day later, OP provided us with an update. Just to clarify a few things, my dad died from a heart attack 2 years ago, which came as no surprise because he smoked a lot and lived a pretty unhealthy life. We weren't really surprised, it wasn't his first heart attack. He was a great grandpa and a great dad right up to the end. His death left my mom alone and she doesn't work. My mom has multiple sclerosis, which is mostly steady but slowly gets worse over time and flares up occasionally. These flare-ups are made worse by stress, which my mom is currently experiencing. A flare-up often means that her recovery level isn't quite what it was before, so we mostly try to keep her stress-free. My dad had life insurance, so her house is paid for and she had a little money. However, there's also a caretaker coming over 3 times a week to clean, cook, do shopping, etc., which she can't afford. My wife and I pay for this. As I mentioned in a comment on the original post, my wife and I are probably better off financially than Barb and Nick. They have a fancy house and fancy cars, but also have a mortgage and loans. The great response I got made me think about this situation again, and I thought about how I could stand my ground without giving up on Tracy altogether. I figured that there was no perfect solution and I had to settle on something. I took the day off work because I just needed to process and deal with this situation. One comment on the original post really got to me about how someone would feel in Tracy's place, and I just can't do that to her now. I know this isn't the update some of you have wanted, but I just can't. I love her like she was one of my own, and my kids do as well, and it's not her fault. I unblocked my sister because obviously if I'm going to be interacting with her child, she needs to be able to reach me. I talked to my mom during the day and she was distraught about having to pick Tracy up, which is pretty hard on her. I told her I was willing to do it, but I'm coming over and she's gonna have to hear me out, to which she agreed. I talked to her for a long time, avoiding snark and lashing out this time, and just explaining that how serious Nick was or how he is doesn't matter. I used that rocking the boat analogy someone linked in the comments and further stressed my point by saying that it shouldn't matter if I was justified or not in getting upset. I am her child, and if something upset me, it at least warrants giving me the benefit of the doubt before siding against me. Eventually, it seemed to come through. She apologized and we hugged it out, and I think she got it. She's not a very confrontational person and generally really tries to keep the peace. This time, she went about it wrong. I'm not saying I'm not mad, but she's my mom, and she apologized. I explained to her that she shouldn't be covering for me because that means I have no leg to stand on when confronting Nick and Barb, and she was receptive to it. I texted my sister that we needed to talk and that I'd drop Tracy off at their place that night, to which I got a stoic thumbs up. I picked Tracy up from daycare and she was overjoyed. She was actually a little possessive of me, staying by my side all afternoon instead of running off to play, which was cute but also made me feel a little bad because of the impact of me not picking her up. I explained to the best of my ability that she's not in trouble and I'm not angry with her, but I am angry with her parents and we need to work that out. I assured her I'll do my best to not stop picking her up anymore, which made her really happy. I dropped her off in the evening, and once she was in bed, I sat down to talk with Barb and Nick. I told them flat out that mom wasn't going to be covering for them anymore, and if they didn't let me finish what I had to say, I would get up and leave and they can find new arrangements for Tracy. They weren't happy, but were willing to listen, so that was progress, or at least a threat working. I explained that this was the situation now. I don't need them to mean their apology, but I sure as hell was going to need one. This was principle now. I have spent years taking care of their child, and if they wanted to be assholes, I wasn't going to do it for free. So this was how it goes now. I am no longer going to be dropping her off in the morning until further notice. There was no excuse for the way Nick acted, and it needed to have some lasting impact. I was no longer going to be paying for family outings and family vacations. It was a man's job to support his family, so good luck with that. The exception is Tracy, who is always welcome. If I hear any more BS being talked about me behind my back, I was going to start charging them for my service. My plan was to dangle the thing they want, childcare. Restoring it, but at the same time, giving some repercussions and a threat of things getting hard for them again. I also laid it on pretty thick about how I am a man, so I obviously have my pride and can't have that be disrespected, even by my own family who I obviously love. Nick was not happy about this, and my sister actually had to take him outside to talk it out without me. But eventually, they did agree to it, and I got my apology. I could probably press it further, but I didn't want to risk having to either back down or hurt Tracy again, so I took this. There were no tears and no warm hugs, but I get to walk away with what I wanted, giving them some payback without having to give up my time with Tracy. I still plan to talk to my sister alone about her relationship with Nick and about how she sees me, but I figure I should let things calm down a bit before I do. I know this isn't the resolution some of you wanted, but at the end of the day, I need to find a solution I can live with, and for me, this is it. We'll update if anything changes. User Kiria said, repercussions for the adults are good. Tracy doesn't feel punished, but the adults have real consequences if they violate your boundaries. I think that's really important. To this user, Katie Bean said, agreed, OP was in such a terrible position, and I feel like he really threaded the needle as best as anyone could. As he said, he had to make a decision he could live with. He loves his niece and can't bear the thought of hurting her, and I would 100% feel the same. But this solution makes it clear that his parents are still in the wrong, where they should be. OP, I hope you take the time with your niece to do some counter-programming against her parents' toxic rhetoric. That poor girl needs to learn what is normal and acceptable, or she's doomed to marry a douchebag like her father because her mama taught her that's the ideal. User Queasy Flowers said, as much as I would have enjoyed reading about you screwing over your relatives, I can't fault you for putting your niece first. She really loves you and you love her, and that's beautiful. I will say that your sister is an ungrateful, awful sibling, and Nick is just a POS. I could write paragraphs of insults about that pathetic little man, but I'll spare you. User Because of Blue said, why aren't you charging them, and why were you paying for their vacation? You kind of do sound like a doormat, and I can see why a homophobic and most likely racist person would take advantage of you. I'm guessing it isn't going to stop. They're just going to hide it a little better. They still see you as a piece of shit that they can walk all over. To this user, Lemon Cake said, I agree that he's still being a doormat, just a slightly smaller one. I have a feeling that if he charged them even a nominal fee, they would refuse and dump the work on the grandma who isn't physically capable. That's clearly something OP wants to avoid. This next post was made in the Surviving Fidelity subreddit by a user named Bourbon Blessed. The post is titled, Wife Cheated. I, 35M, have been married for 7 years to my 33F wife, no kids. 2 years ago, she started a new career and has been very successful. At the time she started, she mentioned a man that she works with, but said on more than one occasion that he was a jerk and she didn't like to work with him. Since then, she has softened a bit and really doesn't mention him much. I felt like I had no reason for concern. I've always trusted my wife, and although our marriage is not perfect, I felt like we got along pretty well. Fast forward to about a month ago, I started noticing some changes in behavior. She was texting a lot more and never letting her phone leave her side. She seemed to have more things going on at night and on the weekends. She became cold toward me and wouldn't reciprocate any affection, and she lied to me several times about strange things. The last lie was when she was packing for a business trip, and I noticed she had purchased a new, much more revealing bathing suit than anything I'd ever seen her wear. I asked her about it, and she said she ordered it online, and once she tried it on, decided it wasn't appropriate for a business trip to Florida with her colleagues, so she leaves for the trip and takes the bathing suit. While she was gone, I decided to do a little digging. I'd never in our entire relationship ever gone through my wife's things, but I'd had enough of all the lies. In one of her work bags, I found a drawing someone had done of her, almost like a caricature, but it was done on paper from a hotel. I also found a post-it note with driving directions to her male co-worker's house written in her handwriting. I went through our bank statements and found that many times when she was supposedly at work, she was out at different restaurants around the city. This was enough for me to investigate further. I'm a private investigator by trade, and ethically, I have no problem invading someone's privacy when confronted with a reasonable suspicion of wrongdoing. I placed a GPS tracker in her car. The Sunday after she got back from her trip, she told me she was going to work at a coffee shop and run some errands. Her car never came within 1 mile of a Chipotle, but when she got home, she walked in holding a Chipotle cup and confirmed she had eaten there. Then on the following Tuesday, she told me she had to go to a company dinner and would be working late until the dinner. The GPS showed her leaving work at 3:20 p.m. and driving to the restaurant where her car remained until 9 p.m. The final straw came the following Saturday. We were supposed to watch my niece play tennis at 8 a.m. She said she wanted to drive separately so she could leave from the venue and go work at a coffee shop. After the match, she told me she was heading to X coffee shop and added a few details about why she wanted to go there. I said, "Have a good day," and went to my vehicle. Well, on the GPS, I watched as she drove directly to a Comfort Inn motel. I got to the Comfort Inn and waited in an adjacent parking lot until I could confirm she was actually in the building and not sitting in her car. I called her from the lobby and asked, "How is X coffee shop?" She replied that it was good, asking why I wanted to know. The only other thing I said was, "Come down here so we can get this over with." Once she came down, she said these exact words, "It's not what you think. He has to do this because he's been caught with other girls before." I asked what she was talking about, and she said that he always works in hotel rooms. She insisted that they didn't do anything physical, and that's when I told her to get out of my car. I drove away, and she called me 50 times. I finally answered and told her that if she told me even one lie, I would hang up. She admitted that they had kissed once about 5 months prior, but insisted it was a mistake and didn't mean anything. She repeated that they were just working. I asked how many times she had met him in hotels, and she said about 10 times over the last 9 months. I then asked what she did on that Tuesday, and she became defensive. She claimed she was at work all day until the work dinner. I called her a liar and hung up the phone. She showed up at our house while I was loading my car with my belongings and my dog. She stood in the driveway refusing to move until I talked to her. She was in hysterics, crying and apologizing. I moved out that day and have been gone for a month. We have met a few times for her to try to explain things. However, when it becomes my turn to ask questions, she becomes very upset, gets defensive, and says things like answering these questions isn't good for the relationship. She has also lied about several details, even when those details seem completely inconsequential. I've called her out on the lies, and she accuses me of trapping her by asking questions to which I already know the answers. Through all of this, she has remained adamant that this was not a romantic relationship. She said that she became really good friends with this man and that he was helping her with her career. She admitted that their conversations would become inappropriate when they discussed our marital issues. She acknowledged texting him and deleting the texts, claiming they weren't romantic but could be seen as flirting. She also said that she has been depressed for a long time and that he was good at talking her out of those feelings and encouraging her in her work. I know I'm being mind screwed, but there's a part of me that believes her. It may be that I want to believe her because I love her or I'm afraid of the truth. I'm really hung up on finding out the truth, but the reality is I don't see any way that I can get over the facts that I do know, so why does it matter? Am I losing my mind? Update: we are a month out from D-Day. I spoke with her last night and here are the highlights. I asked if she has talked to the man over the last 4 weeks. She said that he doesn't know that I showed up to the hotel on D-Day and called her out. She said that she hasn't talked to him about the situation because this is an issue in our marriage and doesn't involve him. I asked if she has stopped all non-work related communication with him. She said that she is tapering down. Tapering down, I lost it. She said she feels like she has to taper down rather than go no contact because he doesn't know that I busted her. Infuriating. She then lied about a completely insignificant detail. I called her on it and I was 100% confident that she was lying. She denied it to the point of yelling and never relented. I left it and chalked it up as one more unresolved issue in this saga. Update 2. After she told me she was tapering off social communication with the other man, I hid a voice recorder in my house and left. Last night I reviewed the tape and discovered my wife and this other man had spent well over an hour on the phone with each other over the course of at least 2 phone calls. My recorder died in the afternoon. I would assume they talked again in the evening if not more. I didn't hear too many specifics from the phone call, but I did hear a few damning things. They talked for a while about the current state of affairs in our marriage, something she claimed he knew nothing about. They talked about how to use the secret phone app on their phones so as not to be detected. She called me a dick for showing up late for breakfast that morning, and they talked and laughed about a million other topics. I haven't heard my wife that giddy since we were dating. I confronted her about all of this, and she admitted to some of it, denied other parts of it. I don't really care anymore. Update 3. For the past 2 weeks, I have gone no contact with my wife. A few days ago, she texted me and asked if we could talk. I told her that unless she's willing to confess to everything, I was not willing to talk. She then said she knows I've wiretapped her phone and that I already know everything. I told her I need to hear it from her directly. She finally agreed to sit down and tell me everything. She came to my house and confessed that her relationship with the other man was indeed sexual and that it had been going on for the past 6 months. She admitted that she purchased a hotel room one day before our anniversary to be with him. She also confirmed that she had continued talking to him after being caught and he was helping her deal with my questions. She claims that she has now broken it off with the other man for good and wants to work on our marriage. This confession came 6 agonizing weeks after I caught her in the hotel. I believe the only reason she confessed is due to my persistence. However, she said that she was always planning to tell me, but wanted to make sure it wouldn't hurt either one of us too badly. The damage done during those 6 weeks is insurmountable. User Throwaway CVP said, "Why are you wasting your time? You had all the proof and now you have a confession. You don't have kids and you're young. Why are you wasting your time? Don't let the sunk cost fallacy catch you. She cheated for 6 months, probably having sex with him 2 to 3 times a week, and took you for a fool. Show that you're not one." User Bensel said, "Take her back, and next time she will take her affairs underground, making it so hard to find that you'll need to get a whole team of PIS involved. Nobody should have to go through something like this." User HPSI said, "As long as you keep relying on her coming clean to give yourself closure, this will never end. You know more than enough to understand that she is screwing him and lying about it. That's all that matters. Let go of all expectations of truth or closure or literally anything else from her. As long as you hinge your progress on her actions, you won't move past this." A while later, OP gave us an update post. Basically, my wife of 7 years had an affair with a coworker. I, a private investigator, caught her in a hotel with the guy and she denied any wrongdoing. First, let me say this. If you're in this situation and you're even remotely don't do it. I say don't do it because if you do, you're going to miss out on the greatest time of your life. I mean that 100% sincerely. I know it's impossible to see when you're first going down this road, but trust me, don't miss out on this life. Now, the update. We got divorced. I took my time in making that decision. I wish I wouldn't have taken that time, but who cares? She wanted to stay together for what reason I have no clue. She lied and gaslighted for an eternity, and that tore up any reconciliation possibility for me. It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through. During my marriage, I was all in. I wasn't perfect, but I loved my wife with all my heart and wanted to be with her forever. I would have done anything to make her happy, and I think I did on several occasions. Now that I'm away from that relationship, I can see it for what it was, a narcissist crushing every ounce of energy out of a good person. That marriage was completely one-sided, with one person giving everything and the other person taking even more than could be given. By the end of the marriage, I truly thought I was worthless as a partner. She degraded my profession, my personality, and my looks. Since getting divorced, my business has flourished and I've been able to date women that I would have thought were way out of my league. I seriously thought I was ugly, in part because of the way my ex-wife made me feel, but now I'm having gorgeous women much younger than me approach me in bars. I've been in a couple of wonderful relationships with great women. They ended amicably for general compatibility issues, but it illuminated how terrible of a partner my ex-wife really was. I don't have any contact with the ex anymore. I really don't even think about her very often. This divorce became contentious because she thought I was getting too much of the money, even though I was taking less than 50% because I wanted it to go smoothly without breaking up businesses and retirements. Can you imagine that? Cheating on someone, then getting upset about the amount of money they're taking, even though it's less than 50%. That hammered home for me that I was making the right decision and I needed to get away from this garbage as fast as possible. I lost friends in the divorce, good riddance. Most took my side, but I don't care about those who didn't. They made it easy for me to jettison them. I lost my in-law family, and this is one of the hardest parts. I really loved some of them, but I get it. I sent enough correspondence to the AP's wife that I'm 100% confident she knows. She never contacted me back, and I'll respect her decision. Some advice if you're fresh in this nightmare: separate yourself from the situation. This is the only way you're going to be able to think clearly without being gaslit. Get professional help. I was in therapy for a long time. It helps. I'm so much stronger now because of it. Surround yourself with friends and family as much as possible. Make healthy choices, go to the gym, limit drugs and alcohol, get outside, and try to sleep. Take people's advice but make your own decisions. It's your life. There were some really dark days after D-Day, but after the initial heartache, it has been the best time of my life. I'm truly happy every day. If you're going through this and need some advice from a self-proclaimed expert, hit me up. I'm happy to help. A huge thanks to everyone here who helped me when I was struggling. User SheDig said, I escaped a relationship with a cheating and gaslighting narcissist myself. One thing they seem to do is project all of their insecurities onto you. By the end of my relationship, I felt like an ugly goblin who had no future or any good qualities. After I went no contact and cut him out of my life, I realized that I'm none of that. He was the ugly one, inside and out, who felt the need to insidiously destroy my self-esteem so that I could be trapped. They play chess with you and you don't even realize that you're a player in this heavily manipulative and soul-destroying game. They feed off lying and hurting those that naively trust them. I'm happy to see that your eyes are open. Glad to hear you're doing better. Cheers to a continued happy life for you. To this OP said, it's a different world once you understand the game, isn't it? Congrats to you as well. A deleted user said, amazing update. I hope to join you in happy mode in due course. I'm surprised that I'm able to do so much better than I thought. There's nothing like upgrading after cheating. I keep thinking, what doesn't kill us makes us so much stronger. In a few years, I'm sure I'll look back on all of this and be grateful that everything worked out better than expected. I'll find a great man as my husband, someone worthy of respect and admiration. I've lost friends too after they became narcissistic flying monkeys, but I'll upgrade in due course. I feel like when you level up, you lose interest in what was holding you back. Under this comment, OP said, that's probably the best way to put it. When you level up, you lose interest in what was holding you back. My rearview mirrors have broken off. I'm too busy enjoying life to think about the past. You'll get there too if you stay the course. Get all of the hurt out of your system, then release yourself to live your best life. It's utopia on the other side because you'll realize how strong you are now for having gone through all of this. User Moon Memphis said, I read your update with great interest. I was involved with a woman some time ago who I could practically swear had no soul. She was incapable of telling the truth, even in the smallest things. A master gaslighter who cheated constantly on a whim without so much as attempting a believable lie. I could not put up with her for long, and when I turned her loose, she still worked for 2 months to get me back. Not happening. I don't understand these types of people, but if I can add to your advice, don't play their games. All of you as individuals are worth much more than how little the cheaters value you.